Hello everyone, in this video let us learn how to create a pivot table in Google Sheets. So if you look at this sheet here, I have basically this employee data, and all I want to do, I want to basically do some analysis on it. So first of all, we need to understand why there is a need to create a pivot table. Now, if we talk about a tool like Google Sheets, you have, of course, the option to store the information in a tabular format. And since Google Sheets is it's an online tool, you can collaborate with other people. So you also have the advantage of course, involving different team members. They can come here, they can also contribute, or they can make some changes. But when you store information in an Excel sheet, for example, or in this case, we're talking about a Google spreadsheet, we may want to do some analysis, and that is really important. So if you look at this employee data, we have a few columns here like employee name, designation, department, location, and salary. Now, let us say you have this information of hundreds or maybe thousands of employees working in your organization, and you want to analyze or you want to basically understand how many engineers you have, how many engineers you have in a specific location, how many people are earning, let us say, more than 30,000 pounds or dollars or whatever currency every month or every year. So these things can be easily done when you have the information stored somewhere, but with the help of pivot table, you can actually make it very easy. Now let us learn how to create a pivot table. And to create a pivot table, what you can do, you can just simply select the whole sheet to begin with. I'll keep it very simple, and we need to go to the option on top called data. And if you go to this option, you have the ability to select the pivot table. Now, the moment you click on pivot table, it will give you the option to insert this pivot table in a new sheet, which I recommend, so that we have a clarity and we don't really confuse the pivot table with the existing sheet that we are working on. And on top, you have the option to change or modify the data range. So right now the data range is this sheet called employee data, and we are working in this sheet ranging from the first row till the 1000th row. We can of course change it later. So let us not worry about this for the time being, and quickly create a new pivot table. Now, the moment you create a pivot table, you have the option to use the pivot table editor on the right hand side. And to keep things very simple, what you can do, you can actually I'll probably remove my face here, so we are able to take a look at this sheet completely. Now, if you look at this sheet, you have to basically use this pivot table editor to generate this pivot table. Now, in the beginning, let us say you want to display something in the rows, and you want to do some analysis based on, let us say, the location. So let us say if you want to understand how many people work at a specific location, you can first insert your employee name, for example, in the rows. So you have employee names here, and you can select, let us say, your location in the value option here under the value. So let us say if you select a location, you can easily see here that we have some analysis, but this is not really very useful because it is showing us for each and every employee their location count, which is I don't think it is really useful. But instead of employee name, what if we select here, let us say, their designation maybe. So if you select a designation here, you can immediately see something really interesting and useful. Now, if you look at this pivot table, you have the information about the designation, of course, but how many engineers work at a specific location, which is in this case 11, and how many HR assistant work at a specific location, which is in this case 2. So this information is not really I mean, of course, we have some analysis straight away, but we can do a bit better. For example, we don't really have the actual location name here. So let me do something really interesting. Let me just swap the column. So if I move my location to the rows, and maybe I want to just move my designation to the columns. So let us see if we have something a bit more interesting. So now we can see here that we have the locations listed here in the rows, and we have the designations listed on the column, but the count is still missing. So now what we can do, if you go to the values, you can select the employee name, and it will immediately show you something really interesting. So the moment you count the values of your employees, so now you can immediately see that we have the location here and we have the designation, and this is really useful because you can straight away analyze it, and you can answer some questions like how many HR assistant work in Berlin. So you know the answer, which is 4 here. I mean, not really HR assistant, we are talking about the engineers here. And you can, if you go to the very last column, you have the total count. So you can see here that for each and every location you have the count, and right now we have in total 28 employees working across different locations. If you look at the count here, we know that we have four people working in Berlin, we have 5 people working in, no, 7 people working in Delhi, and so on. And of course you can freeze the first column, or maybe the first header if you want. So this is something that you can do here. Now also let us do something with the salary, and I will probably remove the location, and I will also or let us keep the designation. So let me move the designation to the rows, and I will probably include here something called salary. So the moment you include salary here, and by the way, when you are doing some analysis, you can see here that you have the option to also change the sum to maybe count or something else. So right now we are just interested in doing a sum of all these salaries. So right now you can see here that the total salary that you're paying to your employees is this much, and your engineers are taking, or not the engineers, the engineers are taking the most salary. And of course it also depends how many engineers you have, but I think it is a good breakup if you're doing the analysis, or maybe you want to understand where your money is going. Now we can do further analysis. We can further break it up. Now maybe you want to break it up by location. So let us bring in our location here. So if you go to the columns here, maybe I want to add my location, and let us see if we have something interesting. So this is now giving us a bit more information about the salaries by designation, but you also have a breakup by location. So this is something that you can also take a look at if you want to basically do some further analysis. And you also have the option to use some filters here on the pivot table. Maybe you just want to focus on your engineers. So if I add the designation here, and if I probably select, let me first clear everything, and if I select just engineers, I will have the information for only engineers. So this is something that you can also do. So in this video, I just wanted to give you some idea about how you can start using pivot tables. And if you are coming from the Excel background, and if you are familiar with creating pivot tables, and then I think you wouldn't miss a lot. Of course, there is no comparison when it comes to Google Sheets or Google Spreadsheets and Microsoft Excel, but I think Google Spreadsheets, Google Sheets has its own advantages because it is first of all free, and or maybe it is not free if you're using the Google Apps account, but I think if you're using a personal email ID, then you can still use Google Spreadsheets for free. And I think a lot of people use Google Sheets. Maybe if you're a small business owner, or maybe you're a freelancer and you want to do some analysis. So I think even if you track your activities, or maybe you are using Google Spreadsheets for keeping track of your expenses, or maybe in this case, keeping track of your small team, you can still use pivot tables, which is a really useful feature in Excel. And this is all I wanted to share in this video. And I hope you enjoyed and you learned something new today. Thank you very much.